Today on TFPMini, we're going to be modeling, printing, and painting a miniature Torii Gate from the Japan Pavilion at EPCOT. This isn't an overly complex thing to make, but it does have some challenges I'll need to figure out along the way. The first challenge is figuring out what size this torii is. It's modeled after the torii at the Itsukushima shrine in the actual country of Japan. There's a fair amount of info on that real torii, but the one at EPCOT, as usual, is shrouded in mystery. Well, maybe not so much mystery as it's just not published anywhere I could find. As with any model, I snap a few reference photos, gauge the height with known markers, like my peeps, then come home, measure on Google Earth, and do some research, and I can usually piece together size info that is fairly accurate. But the torii doesn't have any verified specs that I could find online, and my peeps can't get close enough to the gate for any level of accuracy. I tried Google Earth, but the measurements didn't feel accurate at all. But I got some numbers to work with, so let's give this a try and see how it goes. In the last video, I mentioned my move from fusion to plasticity, which was a great move. It's easy software to learn, so modeling something like this was pretty quick even for a novice like myself. As with any item that has some sort of symmetry, you only need to model some of the item and then you mirror it. In this case, there are two lines of symmetry in the model. The model is symmetrical across both the X and Y planes, which basically means I only need to model 1/4 of the structure. Making the pillars is easy. I just trace the shape and taper from my reference image and then run a revolve command on it and you have a pillar. The large pillar gets a 180-degree revolve, because it'll be mirrored later, and the smaller pillar gets a full 360-degree revolve. The main horizontal beam gets traced as well, as it has a bend in it and it's not quite straight, then extruded. The roof gets traced out, and then I run a sweep command along the same curve as the beam, which gives it that kind of bent-up look on the ends. A few more support beams and a little angled details that I think the model makers would call greeblies, and we're done. Now here's the magic of that mirroring system on lines of symmetry I talked about earlier. I simply select my entire model, which is 1/4 of the final model, and use the mirror tool, and then tell it which face I want to mirror on. I do that once on the X-plane, and now my 1/4 model becomes 1/2 of a model, and then I repeat that on the Y-plane, and my model is whole. It's amazing how quick you can build models like this. Then you grab your mouse and rotate it around and pat yourself on the back for making a thing in 3D. Then you fire up the old 3D printer and print the final model. Now, the one drawback to modeling like this is supports. Sure, I could chop the model into smaller pieces. That would require far fewer supports, or maybe none at all, but then I'm spending time on gluing instead. Since this model is fairly simple, I opted for it being one piece with supports. It's during the support removal time that I tend to regret that decision. Had I gone the glue route, I would have regretted that decision on glue up, so you can't always win here. Next up, I ran into my first real problem. The torii is too large. I mean, there's no way it can be this large, right? This required some research, so I was off for a trip to EPCOT in the name of knowledge. Well, I mean knowledge and food from all the tasty food booths. I decided to use my highly calibrated crocs and see how many crocs long the torii was. I really just needed this one number as my overall proportions seemed decent. So if I could just get a measurement on how long the torii is, everything can scale to that number. But getting a croc measurement on something that is well over 50 feet away is no easy task. But I took a few croc counts and rescaled the torii, which means another 3D print and more support removals. This one looks a lot more on par with my HO scale world, I think. Once the supports were off, I had to figure out how to clean up the area under the roof where most of the supports tied into. It was a little bumpy and rough and I wanted to smooth it out. I've been wanting to try this modeling paste for a while, so I figured this was a good opportunity for that, even if it probably wasn't the proper solution. This paste is a thick, well, it's a paste, so you can brush it on or smooth it on with a finger as needed. On that note, I'm always 100% up for safely using all products. So when I say smooth with a finger, I assume you know that it's a gloved finger. Just like when you sand something, it's assumed you know to wear a mask or a respirator. Yada yada. I'm not your safety advisor, and just because I don't mention every safety system throughout these videos doesn't mean they weren't used. But I get a little tired of videos that waste time with every possible safety scenario. You can probably figure out how to be safe without me telling you how. With the paste dry, I was able to hand sand it smooth, and it will be more than fine for the underside of a roof that nobody will ever see. Moving on to paint, I use an airbrush to prime it and then paint it in a nice red color. The roof and tops of the pillars are in some sort of a brown looking color, and the ridge of the roof is in this really nice blue, so I just hand painted those on. It was basically done at this point, but I felt like it was missing something. The bottom of the torii pillars are covered in what I assume is supposed to be either barnacles or some sort of protective rocks. I went outside to figure out what might work to replicate that, and since Florida is literally built on sand, I grabbed some sand. A little Mod Podge painted onto the bottom of the pillars, and sprinkling sand on was an easy solution. Then I brushed on some various white and black paint washes to make it look old and dirty and grimy just like the one at EPCOT. Much better, but something still was missing. Oh right, that little plaque with the Japanese symbols on it. A quick print and paint, and there we go. The P's of resistance. And now, let's look at the final result.